Today's request revolves around a subject I absolutely admire: baseball. You know, I was gonna pile on a bunch of jokes about baseball and how I find it to be boring, just as everyone does nowadays, but you know what? That's not fair. I get why a lot of people have love and dedication for America's oldest game. It was a thing I was never into as a child, but as I've gotten older, I've come to understand why people like it a bit more, maybe for a different reason. I'll never get into the technical aspects, but I do enjoy the idea of just sitting back, relaxing in a stadium with the hot sun, a cold beer. I went to a Twins game last year, and it was actually a really relaxing experience, and it's something that I really hope I can do again sometime soon. Well, speaking of technical aspects of the baseball world, here's Moneyball, a movie I never would have expected to be so into, and yet here we are. It's one of my favorite sports movies. I managed to see this back in 2011 in theaters. I didn't know what to expect. I was going with my family, and Brad Pitt was the star, so I figured it would be fun enough. I even got a picture with the largest movie display I have ever seen in a theater. Seriously, the theater in Grand Forks was amazing. I hope to return someday. After it was over, the movie stuck with me for a long time. It took me back to The Social Network, that was released a year prior, another film that was incredibly investing, fused with tight dialogue and personalities. I guess it's not a surprise that Aaron Sorkin, the screenwriter for The Social Network, also lent a hand on Moneyball's screenplay. Brad Pitt's character, Billy Beane, a previously aspiring baseball player, is the general manager for the failing athletics baseball team. With the genius mathematics skills of Peter Brand, played by Jonah Hill, they work to create a new roster that specializes the talents of affordable players, going against the teams with huge salaries for their all-star teams, like the Yankees' Jason Giambi and Red Sox's Johnny Damon. It will immediately remind you of the type of story we saw in The Social Network, The Big Short, or even something like All the President's Men, if you want to go farther back in film history. Like those, this is an event in recent history that ignores what we would have seen through the cultural conversations or media, and instead brings it down to an individual level, which makes it more personal. In the case of Moneyball, it follows the tropes that you've seen in other sports movies. The team is failing, it's against all odds, it needs to rebuild, there's flaws along the way, but eventually they work together to change history, even if they win or lose. If you know anything about the Athletics in 2002, you know how their season ended, but I suppose I won't spoil that. So what's the appeal of Moneyball, a movie that had a positive critical response but doesn't seem any different from the hundreds of other sports movies? Well, it's pretty intriguing to watch everything happen behind the scenes, the decisions that were made, and the way each person is affected. Like I said, I don't know too much about baseball, but like most people, I understand that the better teams usually have the better cash flow for competitive salaries, and through the course of the movie, you start to see where the disagreements arise. For instance, the manager gets to make the calls on hiring or firing players. He creates the roster, but the coach doesn't necessarily have to go along with his plan. Every time it seems like things will finally pan out, something gets in the way, and you start to question if Billy is just a crazy captain of a dying ship. There's enough evidence to suggest that Billy might be delusional in this planning because he has such a yearning for success and a championship team, as his own personal endeavor of becoming a baseball player fell apart. By the way, the coach is portrayed by the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, another role where he doesn't steal the show and acts low-key, but gives the character a lot of humanity and realism. Jonah Hill is the shining star, with his Peter Brand character being awkward, full of heart, and very natural. This was one of his first dramatic roles. He's respected in Hollywood beyond his comedic parts nowadays, but back then, I don't think anyone expected him to pull this off. Even when he's talking numbers or statistics, there's a pleasantness to the almost dry material. If I can find a comparison, it's like watching Bob Ross. It's chill, it's slow, but it takes you to another realm of relaxation. I should also point out the mellow score from Michael Dana, which has a number of exceptionally memorable pieces. I feel like this low-beat dramatic music usually goes ignored, but it's perfect for this kind of production, where the suspense is found with inner conflicts. They also use that piece titled The Mighty Rio Grande for 2 parts of the film, to excellent effect. I'd say this is the best use of that song, but I think 2015's Room managed to use it even better, but still, it's really good. This is certainly one of Brad Pitt's best performances, presenting a sometimes chill and laid-back persona, but he has his few moments where he blows up. The balancing act helps to portray his inner battle. He's being professional with his work, even when doing something outside the norm of typical organizations. When he does get angry, it's not overdone, but expressed in cinematic ways, which show just how important a championship team is and everything he'll do to achieve it. His true aim is encapsulated by the brilliant final scene with Peter Brand showing him a baseball clip of Jeremy Brown hitting a home run without even realizing it. Sometimes, with all the determination and aim towards one goal, you can end up succeeding in another sense. Their statistical system ended up being implemented successfully by the Red Sox 2 years later, and I'm sure if you're a fan of any sport and see your team consistently miss that final goal, this movie will be extremely familiar, but relate to that love for less successful franchises. Listen, I'm in Minnesota. I may not be a huge Twins fan, but I watch a lot of the Vikings and Timberwolves, so I really understand what it's like to stay a fan regardless of the letdowns. For a story that probably didn't need to be told on a cinematic level, I'm in awe by just how much devotion was given to this one-of-a-kind sports movie that creates wonderful dialogue, a moving score, and a showcase of talent big and small. I mean, they have Chris Pratt in this, in a pretty serious performance long before Guardians of the Galaxy, and even today, with all of his fame, it doesn't take you out of the movie. If you're a fan of those movies I mentioned earlier, then you'll love Moneyball. It's a brisk and nonchalant picture, which drips in a few moments of intensity and excitement. And I hope my high school English teacher is watching right now to see that I just used the word nonchalant. If you don't know what that word is, go look it up. It's like the coolest. Special thanks to Anna for this Patreon request. Thanks for watching the video, and special shout out to Anthony, Anna, Kirsten, Lucas, Ryan, and Robert for the support on Patreon. By joining my Patreon, you can get exclusive videos and blogs, and for only $7, you can request your own movie review. I hope you stick around, cinephile, and have a happy, productive day.